Hello and welcome to the feature presentation. This is the same three from our Terminator show, myself, Matt, Augie, and Sean. And tonight...
You just named yourself twice.
Yeah, we're playing a game. It's called You Only Give Twice and Then You Have to Take. In case you can't tell, we're talking Bond finally. Previously, Augie and I did one, but we realized it wasn't that much fun because there was two of us. Now we got a third person to play Peacemaker.
Another Bond fanatic.
Yep.
Yes, we need the middle ground.
Yeah, we need the middleman. And so this is a long time coming. I've seen all the movies. We've all seen all the movies, pretty sure multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, only once for like the Connery, Moore, and Dalton films. Like I've seen like the Brosnan and Craig films, like I think 5 times each.
So we're gonna go through all the Bond films. This will be a 4-part collection. We're gonna do all the Connery films in one, Lazenby and Moore in one. Dalton and Brosnan is going to be part 3, and then the Craig films are going to be part 4. So stick around, and if there is time, we will discuss the unofficial James Bond film, Never Say Never Again. But honestly, there's not much to say about it.
And what about Casino Royale and the other Casino Royale?
Let's not.
The two
I couldn't
Casino
finish
Royales.
the Woody Allen one.
I saw the TV one.
The David Niven one?
No. There was before Dr. No, there was this American TV show called Climax, and one of the episodes they do an adaptation of Casino Royale, and they have an American Bond and a British Felix Leiter, and they have Peter Lorre as Le Chiffre.
Ooh, that's interesting. So let's
Honestly, go ahead.
So let's begin with the first James Bond film, which was over 50 years ago, which is Dr. No, which came out. And it's, looking back on it, it's one of the most interesting Bond films because it set the template, but in a way it didn't.
Mm-mm.
Who wants to go first?
How about I start?
Okay, go ahead.
Never mind. No, you can go first.
Well, like you said, it set the template, but it didn't because it's very different from the other ones. It's much smaller in scope. It feels almost like a film noir, but in the sun. It's like just a pure detective thriller. Bond gets the mission, goes in, gathers the clues, the witnesses, and everything that leads him further down the path. It's very stripped down, very stark, and certainly maybe not much, but it's certainly a more
Toned down.
Yeah, toned down and also harder edged Bond.
He's more cold-blooded.
We've talked about the scene where he shoots the Dent guy in cold blood, and yeah, it's certainly one of the best scenes in the whole series because he's a killer. I mean, what Dr. No really shows is that Bond is a killer. He doesn't just have a license to kill. He has it in his blood that he will just shoot somebody if he has to. And
do it.
Exactly. And I think, a lot of people, have said a lot about this one. I've said before, I think the movie takes a slight dip once you hit Dr. No's lair, even though Dr. No himself, I think, makes up for it. But it's still a great movie, still very entertaining. Honey Rider, despite not really doing much after her first scene,
Iconic scene.
A classic first scene, and I love the first 2/3.
What are you doing? Looking for shells? No? I'm just looking.
I'm just looking. Great
Be
stuff.
interrupted by singing Underneath the Mango Tree that she was singing.
Yep.
Speaking of singing, it's interesting how Sean Connery got the part. I think everyone considers Sean Connery the best James Bond. I don't think there's any real debate.
Yep, no debate.
And it's interesting because Ian Fleming wanted David Niven. And when Sean Connery was cast, he was a well-respected actor. He had done singing in Darby O'Gill and the Little People. And when he was cast, Ian Fleming was pissed. And he said that Sean Connery, and I quote, reminded him of a cab driver.
don't see David Niven as Bond, though.
I can't see it either.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Because he doesn't have, like, I mean, not to knock David Niven. I love the guy, but he doesn't have that. Like, I can't see him pulling off the scene where he shoots Dent in Cold Blood.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know, he doesn't really fit that rougher, like, grittier mold that is established in this one.
Very true. So where does Dr. No rank for you?
It's pretty high. It's in the top 10. It's not in my top 5. I can't remember exactly where it is, but it's somewhere in the 10 to 6 range.
Same for me. It's like number 6, I think, for me.
It's somewhere around there. Yeah.
The first 3 Bond films are my favorite Bond films because Connery's at his peak, and also it's fascinating to watch because the formula's not there yet, and they're 3 totally different movies.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. No, for me, it's my least favorite of the 3, but that's not because it's bad, just when you compare it to the other 2. It is kind of reserved. Honey Rider's okay. I like smart Bond girls, and she's not exactly the sharpest knife in the drawer.
I found my list. I would put it at number 7.
Dr. No's a good villain. The metal hands is a really cool touch and bites him in the ass at the end. It's interesting considering they also don't have the theme song. They don't. Well, they have the song, but they don't
3, 9 mice. Here we go.
They don't have the movie song, I should say.
Yeah, I know.
And Connery was only 31, and I find that so cool. He was barely 31 when he made this movie. And it's really cool to find an actor like that. And honestly, I thought he was a lot older. And he starts to show it towards the end.
Yeah.
But Dr. No, for me, I give it a 4 out of 4. I think it's really cool, and it's the start of the series.
I would give it a 3.5 out of 4.
And as for me, I give it a 4.5 out of 5.
So Dr. No was a big hit and was followed up by, after John Kennedy named it one of his favorite books, they made From Russia with Love, which has actually gone on to become, I would say, Connery's most critically acclaimed. It's up there with the next one. And I do consider it, For Russia with Love for me is my favorite Bond film because it's the one where all the elements work. You got Connery. This one, he looks like he's having a lot of fun because it's not. He's having a lot of. You can see it now in Goldfinger. He's good in Thunderball, but then you can kind of see in the next film, okay, I'm done. But in From Russia with Love, he finds that really fine point between the subtle humor and being the cold-blooded guy still, because he'll slap a woman around to get what he wants, and it has probably for me one of the best fight scenes on the train, and how Bond uses the garrote on his watch. Speaking of which, nice to see Robert Shaw,
Oh, yes.
who is one of my favorite actors, and to me he's the best, I'll call him henchman in a Bond movie, because really he's not the main threat. And
But he overshadows the true main villain.
Blofeld.
Yeah.
All 3
Rosa
villains, because you have Lottie Lenya as Rosa Klebb. And speaking of which, Chris Nolan is a huge Bond fan. For those of you who have seen The Dark Knight, the knife shoe is right out of this movie.
Oh, man. It's right out.
And I can't remember the character's name, who's the chess champion.
Kronstein.
I'll check that for a second. Oh, wait, did you say it?
Yeah, he just said it.
Kronstein.
And
Oh, yeah.
I'm an encyclopedia of Bond.
12 seconds. Sooner or later, we must invent a faster working bed.
And I'll probably be like a third.
Interesting to note that the man who does the body for Blofeld in this film was Professor Dent. It's not the same voice, I believe.
No.
Okay.
Can't remember the voice.
And this has the character.
One thing we forgot to mention is that Ursula Andress was dubbed in the first film, and I forget, Tatiana, the Bond girl in this one, she was also dubbed by the same actress.
Yeah.
One of the hottest Bond girls, I will say.
And that person who dubbed both of them is actually in the movie as a hotel receptionist.
The bed's too small. Afraid it won't do. And to me, this has, if you like Hitchcock, this is the closest you would get.
Yes.
It's got some of the best cinematography, I think, out of all the early ones. The exoticism, the Bond, the gypsy camp, I think it works really well in the movie. He goes to Russia, of course, England, and the character of Kerwin Bay is one of my favorite sidekicks or allies, I guess you could call it that, because he's someone
Yep.
that they get along really well, and he's kind of an equal. And he's got a really cool sense of humor. And as I think Robert Shaw is the standout of the movie. I think every time he's on, the movie's at its peak. And you got the helicopter chase. Although I do have to say, it does have one of the weaker songs.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, that is one of the weaker songs because I mean the instrumental is actually I think great in
That's
the
what's
opening
playing
credits.
now. Keep talking, it's in the background.
Okay, I actually think that instrumental is fantastic. I think the full song at the end credits is really weak, though. I
Yeah.
definitely agree on that end. What's great about Robert Shaw is he's emotionless and ice cold, but he's one of those actors that even when he's showing no emotion, he absolutely holds your attention in every single moment. And what's really interesting about him and what makes it one of my favorite Bond movies is how Bond and the villains go at each other because I mean it really is like pure spy stuff when Karam Bey has his own issues with this other rival gangster which starts a firefight in the gypsy camp, but Robert Shaw is there spying on Bond, but he's shooting the gangsters to keep Bond alive for their scheme to go on. And then there's the whole thing where they film the sex tape behind there as blackmail, and it's probably the only or one of the only truly espionage films.
It's a
in
true
the
spy
series.
film. It's a true spy film.
Yeah, and this is a tight movie from start to finish. There's no bit of fat on it at all. It's trim, but it's not rushed. It's perfect pacing. I used to actually not like this movie when I was a kid. This was one of my least favorite of the series because for some reason in my mind I had this idea that it was one of the least action-packed of it. But when I watched it again recently, it is like chock full of excitement from almost every scene, pretty much, and it never jumps a beat from minute to minute. There's always something there to hold your attention. It never loses you. It never goes off in this tangent that doesn't mean everything. Everything matters. Everything ties together in a web in the best way that spy movies should.
Sean?
Yep.
Well, I don't really know what to say because, again, this is just one of the best Bond movies ever. And the thing is, compared to, of course, we're going to be talking about Goldfinger in a second. But again, if we're talking about like I think straightforward spy espionage, not stories, this is the best Bond movie in that category. So I'm giving it a 5 out of 5.
4 out of 4. It's my favorite.
4 out of 4 too.
So, with the third film in the series, they decided to take a more tongue-in-cheek approach, shall we say. They brought on Guy Hamilton, and we got the biggest Bond movie, and it's also the first one to have the Bond theme song, if I can get it to play. This will be the intro to each movie. There's like 20-second clips I'll put.
Great stuff. Rarely equaled.
Best song?
Yeah, for me, yes.
Second favorite. It's in my top 3 songs. But it's not my number 1 song.
So we got Goldfinger, which is probably the most famous Bond movie. I think that's fair to say. It's fair to say.
This is
Yeah,
what
probably is.
Bond became worldwide phenomenon.
Yeah. Theaters were playing this 24 hours a day. And
Lines block.
so For me, it's my second favorite movie. I think it's the first tongue-in-cheek Bond, and it's also the best at mixing the tongue-in-cheek with the more traditional elements, because there is some darker stuff in it. I mean, you see a woman get suffocated by getting painted in gold. I mean, that's kind of, when you think about that.
And later you see her sister's neck get broken.
By a hat.
Yeah.
Now, we're talking about famous villains. I mean, Goldfinger and Oddjob are probably the two most famous Bond henchmen.
They're iconic, and with good reason.
Iconic.
Gert Frobe's so good, he's entirely dubbed.
Hey,
Yeah, I did a lot of dubbing for these movies. I mean, early ones.
See, like, you never know it, though, because whoever the voice actor was, I mean, both of them do a great job. Whoever the voice actor was, and Gert Frobe's physical performance, because even though he's not a fighter, he's not Grant or anything, but there's just something imposing about him. Whenever he has presence, whenever he comes in the room, you feel like, okay, this guy means business.
Of course, there's the iconic scene, of course, when Bond is strapped to a table and a laser's about to rip him in half. He goes, "Goldfinger, do you expect me to talk?" And he just goes, "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die."
Okay, funny thing about this scene, I actually learned about a few days ago. So, obviously, the laser wasn't real. There wasn't a laser cutting through it, but there was an actual blowtorch cutting through the metal. So there was a real blowtorch going through it and slowly inching toward Sean Connery's nether region, and they stopped about 3 inches from it. I'm sure Sean Connery's reaction shots in the movie were genuine, because he's like, "Guys, I hope you know what you're doing."
You're getting a little too close to my thunderballs.
Casino Royale. The scene in, of course.
Yeah,
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
he's probably like, Craig, they didn't actually hit you. This guy almost burned my nuts off.
Well, they got a little too close. They got a little too close to his thunderballs.
His balls are gold.
And I mean, the tongue-in-cheek, you got the main Bond girl's name is Pussy Galore. I mean,
I must be dreaming.
The only reason they got away with that name is because of the dreaming line. Goldfinger is the iconic Bond movie. It's the movie that whenever people think of Bond, Goldfinger is most likely the one that jumps to their head most. It's got an iconic villain, iconic henchman, iconic song, iconic girl. Of course, and then Sean Connery on top of that. I mean, it's like From Russia with Love, where everything just works together perfectly in
it's a
perfect
totally
tandem.
different movie. It's a totally different movie.
It's totally different, but it works just as well, if not, in my opinion. I mean, personally, it's my number 2 in the whole series.
Likewise.
Yep, it's another great one from the series.
Perfect scores
It's
again.
second best for me, and I think I might need some explain to do about my number 1.
Oh, well, you two can double team that one.
Yeah.
What?
But we're not there yet.
It's not the one. No, it's not that one. It's
Ooh.
something else.
I thought it was. Ooh.
But it's
So
They'll be near the end.
speaking of Thunderballs, I'm just happy they got Tom Jones to do a song.
Hey, have you ever listened to the Johnny Cash version?
I like the Johnny Cash version.
I like it, but it sounds so it's too Johnny Cash, not enough Bond, and I just, for some reason, I can't see it playing on the credits for this movie.
So, because of a whole controversy surrounding the rights to the book, they finally made Thunderball in 1965. They brought back Terrence Young, who did the first 2 Bond films, and it was at the time, I think, the longest Bond movie.
and most expensive and highest grossing.
At the time.
Yeah.
And I find the film to be okay.
I mean, we've talked about this before. I feel like I'm always lone wolf on this one. I've always liked this one a lot. It does drag when it gets to the underwater battle, but apart from that, I mean, it's from beginning to end, it's always entertained me in almost every aspect. Really, I mean, and personally, Fiona is the sexiest Bond girl in the whole series. Not the best, but the sexiest.
I'll argue that statement later.
We'll wait for spoiler. First one for more.
Oh,
Mine's not Solitaire. Solitaire is in my top 5 though, but it's not Solitaire.
Back to Thunderball. So.
So Thunderball for me, I think it's a great name, and to me, there's some really good stuff in it. I love the whole scene at the beginning where he's in the health spa, and I think Fiona's really good. Where she's like, "Can you give me something to wear?" Picks up her shoes and throws it at her. He just sits down. But to me, Connery's good in it. But to me, he was missing something from the first couple films. It seemed like he was good, but he was starting to be like, all right, what if you guys are not going to really push me to a limit? Then I'm getting sick of it. And the weakest problem for me is Largo. He's just a grumpy old guy. And
What an eye patch.
to me, he's the weakest of the Connery villains. And I like the idea of the warheads, but I thought the underwater stuff went on way too long. I kind of got bored by it at times.
it does. It more so. I mean, like we said about the first three. The first three are, tout and tight. From beginning to end, there's almost nothing to trim from them. This one, it does feel like it could have used a second edit pass.
Yeah.
At some point.
I think if they cut out a good 10 minutes of the movie or so.
But, I mean, this was the longest Bond movie at that time. So, and yeah, they could have cut a couple scenes from it.
It's mostly just like trimming. It needs. It feels like there's some scenes where it's like it's fast paced. It's exciting, like the opening, the pre-title sequence, the fight on the boat, and everything. Like there's a lot of stuff that like it's really fast. It's really exciting, and then there's a lot of parts where it's like, all right, this is going on a little too long.
Especially the scene at Largo's at his house with Bond. I thought that went on a little too long.
Mm-hmm.
What do you know about guns, Mr. Bond? I know a lot about women. Can my friend sit this out? She's dead tired. She's just dead, or whatever he says.
Yeah, don't hurt my friend, and she's just dead.
And I really like Domino a lot because she's not. She's an interesting Bond girl because she's not one of the ditzes that we hate so much, and she's not one of, she's not like one of the tougher ones, but she's kind of like in that middle ground where she's more. I'm not sure how to describe it really, but she kind of she doesn't fall into either category really.
She's like Pussy Galore kind of.
But see, Pussy Galore, I think, is one of those tough Bond girls. I mean, like she's not like Domino's not helpless, but at the same time, she's not like she's not someone who can probably stand toe to toe to Bond, but she's kind of like more of like an emotional anchor, especially when Bond tells her about her brother because she didn't know about that.
And to me, I just felt like Bond was on vacation, and the warhead thing was like a side mission.
But if you were on vacation, you would go to the Bahamas and
you're damn
celebrate
right.
Mardi Gras.
And another issue with this movie, I can't remember a single damn henchman.
Wait, you don't remember Vargas?
Yeah, because he
Vargas
gets a
does
spear
not
through his chest. That's about
Does
it.
not drink. Vargas does not make
I
love.
think you get the point. Before they spare for the chess guy.
Yeah, but they don't have any like.
Well, hold on. Fiona's a henchwoman.
Well, I'm talking about
That's
like.
what I said.
Well, I consider femme fatale is different than.
Oh, discriminating against them femme fatales.
So yeah, I think it's good, and I do like the scene with Q a lot, because this is the one where you really start to get the gadgets. Because you got the Geiger counter / watch, the pocket breather, and there's a couple other things. But overall, I think it's got a lot of good, but the weak villain and the underwater stuff, I'm at a 2.5 out of 4.
I gotta stick with my guns. I gotta go with a 3.5. I think. While it
Are you
doesn't
shitting
trim
me?
No, I'm not. I'm being completely honest. Aside from the trimming that it needs, I think it's a seriously entertaining Bond movie. I've always liked it. It's actually around 8 or 9 for me in my listing.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
It's like 14th for me. It's not even my top 10.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the middle for me.
And the underwater scenes that go on for way too long, 4 out of 5. And that's me being generous, I think.
I don't care what all three of you guys say. I love.
There's only 2 of us.
I don't care what Alex says. Well, I know what Alex doesn't like as much either.
Well, majority. So, I mentioned Connery being bored in points, but compared to the next movie, he looks like he drank 6 Red Bulls before he started filming. Because we got to the film that would eventually temporarily be his last film, and that is one of my favorite songs, by the way.
Yeah, I agree. It's a nice song. I didn't really think about it as much, but since then it's grown on me.
Every time I hear Nancy Sinatra, all I hear is "Boots Are Made for Walking," and
serene is a good way to describe this one, because if we thought Thunderball needed another trimming in the editing room, this one really takes its sweet time.
This
at a lot
is,
of points.
to me, the weakest of all the Connerys. It's a tough one for me to sit through personally, because Connery just doesn't look like he could give a shit. Like apparently he hated being in Japan. If you look,
The press.
yeah, in the press too, and especially because the book is so cool. And this is the first one where they really derail from the books.
Yeah, this is drastically different.
Apparently, the screenplay was written by Roald Dahl,
Yep.
Yes.
and I could see some of his elements in the film, like the whole volcano, which to me that's one of the best sets they've ever built for a Bond movie.
The more fantastical
A
elements.
terrific set.
The script, though, it doesn't seem like he had much input. It's just that final battle, to me, it's the best scene in the movie, but the problem is I've seen it so many times to where everything before that, I don't care. Like, I like the helicopter, little Nellie.
Well, she's a fine little woman.
And
fine
the
little girl.
premise is just so damn ridiculous. With the space hijackings and the weapons and the Bond becoming Japanese. I know it's only 5 minutes, but it's a little out there.
It is pretty ridiculous.
Weak girls.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the weakest Bond girls.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
Like Augie, her death, it's just like, whatever. and
I
then Kitty comes out of nowhere and
Kissy.
she has no personality.
Yeah, I would have been fine if they just kept Aki the whole time. Like the second girl, like she's just like blank paper for me. Really, like she doesn't. I don't remember anything about her except for the fact that she spends the whole last third in a bikini.
Yeah. And you got Tiger Tanaka, who he's basically Karen Bay, but I don't get the chemistry between him and Bond.
And I love Tiger.
Like his ninja school is more interesting than the character. And to me, I wish they stuck with the books because this happens after On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and that would have made a lot more sense. And speaking of Blofeld, this is the first one where he's in it, played by the great Donald Pleasance, but he's not in it enough.
Yeah, he's still awesome.
He is, but I think he's the weakest of the Blofeld, solely because he doesn't. I know the scar's there, but I don't see him as physically convincing. Like Dr. Evil, maybe it's because Dr. Evil has killed this movie for me.
I think it's Dr. Evil. But see, like, he's not supposed to. Or he's not meant to be a fighter. He's the mastermind.
In the books, he's the
Well,
physical and mental equal of Bond, which they get to.
That's don't bring the comparisons in here. Gotta take it as the movie.
Regardless, I don't think he's. He only has 10 minutes of screen time?
About that, but you do get his. He's still there throughout the whole movie. You just don't see his face.
I mean, he has one good line.
Yeah.
It won't be the nicotine that kills you, Mr. Bond.
I love how it's like Connery wanted off the set, and if you watch closely, it looks like that cat wants to get off the set too. Because there's a part where Blofeld's talking to Bond, and that cat is trying to pull away so hard, and you can tell that Donald Pleasance has like this death grip on it to like keep it in his.
And this is, speaking of Austin Powers, this is the one where they borrow the most.
With understandable reason.
I mean, to me, this feels like a parody in some sense.
It does get pretty out there and close to it.
It's not one that I recommend. I give a lot of credit, though, to Ken Adams. And this was directed by Lewis Gilbert, who went on to direct 2 more Bond films, which are basically remakes of this.
I was going to say, he wanted to remake his own movie twice.
I mean, granted, there was one that was better. But it's just... I can't recommend it. I go with a 1.5 out of 4. Poor side characters. The plot is kind of slow. And Connery looks like he's ready to hang up the holster.
Funnily enough, I think this is the most positive I've ever heard you talk about this movie.
No, because I recognize there is good stuff in it, but it's all technical stuff.
Yeah. I don't dislike it. If I saw it on TV, I would certainly watch it. I still find it very watchable and entertaining, despite the very weak girls and the weaker Connery performance. But it still entertains me. I would give it a 2.5 out of 4.
And for me, I agree. Like, it looks like Connery just like, okay, let's just get this over. Let's just get this over with. But and also Donald Pleasance, I think he's fine as Blofeld, but just is not given anything to do. That's for me as him as Blofeld. I give it a 3 out of 5.
Certainly like you said, more memorable from a production design and like location shooting standpoint. I mean, all the Japanese vistas really give it a unique flavor among the Bond movies, which is probably why it's endured for so long, because it has that Japanese flavoring to it. It's like, oh yeah, people are like, oh yeah, the Japanese one, that was cool.
And Blofeld.
Yeah, that too.
But we're going to skip the next one. We're going to go to the last Connery one, which is Diamonds Are Forever. And can I just go?
Go ahead.
I'm going to say best theme song. For me, at least.
Another great one from Shirley Bassey.
I like all. The problem is she was 2 for 3 because she did one that wasn't very good. So Diamonds Are Forever, which was directed by, they brought back Guy Hamilton from Goldfinger, and it's considered by many to be a kind of a weak film, but I don't feel that way. I'm gonna preface this by saying this was the first Bond film I ever saw. I saw it when I was 6 years old, and this is the reason why I'm a Bond fan now. Yes, I understand everyone's criticisms, and I can understand where you're coming from, but that childhood fondness for me makes it impossible for me to be totally subjective. I need to preface this right now. For me,
understood.
It's really cool to see Connery come back because it looked like in this one he was actually having fun. Mostly because they were probably waving the check. Like when his intro, when he says the line, it's like you want to stand up and cheer.
Oh, they waved a big fat paycheck in his face for this one.
Because they're like, yeah, screw that Lazenby guy. We got Connery back for one movie.
Yay.
Honestly, this has one of my favorite teaser sequences where Bond's just going after Blofeld. Played by the wonderful Charles Gray. one of the best British character actors. Most of you might know him as the Professor from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Just a jump to the left.
And so the plot, I do understand. It's a Roger Moore film starring Sean Connery. I no.
The plot.
I guarantee you, if Roger Moore made this movie, everybody would praise it. Because that fits his tongue-in-cheek. I don't belong to that camp because you have two kinds of Bond fans, I think. You have the guys who like their down and dirty films, and then you have the guys who like the tongue-in-cheek. I don't think we fall into that category, but the majority of Bond fans like it one or the other. I don't mind both as long as they're done well. And to me, I think this movie's very funny. And Connery looks like he's having fun, although that hairpiece is terrible.
And those eyebrows. He's got
the Scorsese eyebrows.
He's got Eugene Levy on Scorsese eyebrows in this one.
Like he's still got the quick wit. Hi, I'm Plenty. Of course you are. Plenty O'Toole.
Named after your father, perhaps.
And let's see, I'm going to preface this by saying if you don't like campy movies, then don't bother because you won't enjoy this movie. And you got Mr. Kidd and Mr. Wint, Crispin Glover's father. And I love them as villains. They're completely ridiculous, but they're fun to watch.
They're so much fun.
And I could say the same for Blofeld. I know Gray's not as intimidating as Telly Savalas was, but for the tone of the movie, he works. Because you do need to take this as its own thing. He has some great lines, and I love the whole scene where he has the duplicate. He's like, wrong, Bond shoots him, and he goes, wrong pussy. Then the rest of the cast, in my opinion, the hottest Bond girl in Jill St. John. Sexiest Bond girl. Oh, she is so hot. And I had a lot of fun with Jimmy Dean.
The Sausage King.
Yeah, tell him he's fired.
Bart Traxby.
Now, even though Bond, they were very close on nudity, you see Jill St. John walking around in clear lace panties. And maybe I'm hypnotized by this one because I don't mind her being helpless or completely incompetent. And it's actually really, I find it hilarious when she goes to hide at the end of the boat. And she's not annoying, which is why I give her a pass.
Debatable.
Because even Bambi and Thumper, yes, I get it, everybody. It's hilarious when they fight Sean Connery and he's got him in the pool and he's dunking their heads in. Now, I may sound like I love this movie solely on nostalgia. Now, I do have one issue with the movie. It's a big one. I never get the sense Bond is in any danger. He has this awesome fight scene in an elevator, and then he gets put in a coffin. But after that, it seems like nothing can hurt him. Chase scenes are ridiculous.
I point to the moon buggy scene with disdain.
Compared to Moonraker, it's nothing.
Well, please.
But at least there is a sense of entertainment. It's not like I'm looking at my watch going, all right. Now, as someone who loves Roger Moore, I fully embrace the camp. Connery's nowhere near as bad as he sounds, and this film needs to be looked at as a Bond film in general. The style is really good. They capture Las Vegas. The glitz, the glamour, all the casinos and stuff. And even if I didn't have nostalgia, I'd still give it a pass. So please take my thoughts with a grain of salt. And if you don't like camp, that's fine, but I love wink-wink humor and a good time. 3.5 out of 4. I'm going to the bathroom.
All right, Sean, let's break the knives out now.
Okay, I'm ready to shit on your favorite film, so don't do it to mine.
I completely understand what Matt's saying. It's his first Bond film. Matt, I understand. That was your, but for me, unfortunately, I couldn't get into it. I mean, I think it's the most campiest movie ever. But yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said that because it's another one.
It's not the campiest of the series, but the camp. It doesn't work for me in this one.
I just can't take it seriously.
I love Winton Kidd and I like Bambi and Thumper, but Charles Gray's Blofeld it's too much for me. I mean, I know there's a lot of other Bond villains that are really over the top and silly, but he's just too much of a fop, really. Charles Gray. He's just.
I think that's. I'm sorry.
That I just never really like. It's just. I mean, I get that the movie's tongue in cheek. I like a bunch of the tongue in cheek Bond movies, but Charles Gray's tongue is so in his cheek that it comes out the one end and goes back inside. It's just every scene he plays it in. It's just too much for me in his case.
For me, the scene that just lost me is when they're Bond and the main Bond girl are at like I think like a fair or something.
Yep.
And then Elephant goes up to like a blackjack. No, not blackjack.
Yeah.
A roulette wheel and scores. I'm like, really?
It adds to the exoticism of
God.
Vegas. Anything can happen in Vegas.
Don't.
It just loses me there. I cannot take the movie seriously after that. And I do think one thing. I think Jill St. John is a pretty good Bond girl. Charles Gray, good Blofeld. I won't say the best, but better than Donald Pleasance. And yeah, Winton Kid, they're fun henchmen. There's some funny moments, like when they're on a plane, like you can kind of sense like they're gay.
No, they're gay.
And like one of them acknowledges like
There was no
he was
way
pretty
about
hot.
it.
And, the other one goes like turns to him like really, and he goes like no for a girl. I just saw that scene. It's like
What annoys me about Jill St. John's character is she is gorgeous. There's no doubt about that, of course. But what irritates me about it is that she's set up as someone who she's street smart. She can hold her own. She's she is smart. She can handle herself in a situation. And I don't know, somewhere around halfway through the movie, it just seems to go out the door.
Well, she snuck Bond the tape when they're on Blofeld's.
No, but like she starts out as like this smart, witty girl, and then all of a sudden she just turns into another, like one of the ditzes that comes in. And it just, I don't know, she just becomes like too dumb, and it just loses me with that. So, but it does have moments that I like. I do like the pre-title sequence, and I do love Winton Kid a lot. And there are certainly a bunch of scenes that are fun, but the humor doesn't work as well for me as it does in some of the other campy ones. And I don't know. I thought, like I said, Main Girl was annoying, and I couldn't get the Charles Gray. So it's a 2 out of 4 for me.
and for me, this is actually one of my least favorite of the Bond films. It's not. I don't think it's the worst. It's not that one.
Oh no, it's definitely not the worst.
Yeah, anyone who calls this the worst Bond movie, I have to question you just don't like.
Come on, there have been much worse films, but we're not going to agree. I don't think we're going to agree on what's our absolute worst. I have a different one compared to you guys, I think. But
Actually, what's funny is I was reading this thing when Skyfall came out. There was the website Film School Rejects. They were doing like a Bond retrospective, and they had one of the writers doing all the movies, and he gave descriptions of all the movies, what he thought of the movies, what he liked, what he didn't like, and then he would give a rating. And and he's one of like the tougher critics on there, so he would usually kind of give like lower ratings anyway. But when he gets to Diamonds Are Forever for rating, it's like 3 question marks because he was so baffled by the movie. He was like, "What the fuck is this?"
It's in my top 5.
but for me, it's just a 2 out of 5 for me.
All right, that concludes